I think Dillian Whyte's a good fight. I think that, the problem is always going to be the public will want the biggest fights that are out there, and that's the Tyson Fury fight. The sensible thing to do is to keep improving with Derek James. You can't just let a fighter have one fight and then jump into the biggest fight. But at the same time, we realise that certain fights you get the chance to make them at certain times. And maybe that is the time with Tyson Fury. But I think Derek's right in a sensible world. Of course, he wants as much time. It's just a case of who to fight. And I think Dillian Whyte would be a good choice.
Do you believe the fact that he's changed trainers a few times now, maybe that contributed to the problem, maybe that apprehension because of the changing styles from Bob McCracken and then obviously Garcia, a new trainer again? Do you think that's sort of part of it? And are you sort of against all these trainer changes?
Yeah, I'm always against multiple trainer changes, but also for giving them a chance. Yeah. Robert Garcia came in as a bit of a stopgap. It didn't really work out, but, it was a better performance against Usyk. Now Derek James did 12 rounds with him tonight. He'll go away. He'll think there's loads of stuff to work on with Anthony. And I feel like the key is to keep him active. I've said he must fight 3 times this year. And now is the moment where us and the team and Derek have to get on top of that. He goes away, does all his commercial work now and stuff like that. Then next thing he's had a holiday. Then next thing we're in May. Then next thing he gets into camp in June, and then we can't really fight till September. And that's for me what we've got to get on top of now. Try and get him to do his work, then get back to Texas and get back to camp with Derek.
What did you see in there that did impress you? It looked like from the offset his jab was just ramrod and he couldn't sit and most of the fight.
I thought the defence was good. I thought his feet were good. I thought he took some decent shots and didn't look hurt at all in the fight. I thought his engine was great. Normally at times he might look a bit tired in a fight. I thought he looked like he had plenty of energy. Just more, more combinations, probably work more on the inside, use his size on the inside as well. But after, like I said, Franklin in the back end of the fight seemed to come to survive.
What did you make of the altercation at the end?
I don't know what happened. I think there was the last sort of 20 seconds were quite lively and quite, aggressive. And I think maybe there was a headbutt or something went in, and neither guy was particularly happy after the bell or Bellew.
It showed on the spot. It showed on the board. It was like 8 or 9 seconds left, and then the bell went. So I think maybe that's where the confusion was, because the ref was sort of looking around. Didn't seem to know what happened, but there was an altercation obviously with Bellew. How much of that did you see?
What, with Bellew?
Yeah.
No, I asked him. I think he just said that the trainer went for AJ or something, and he shouted something, and then he shouted something at Bellew, and probably the wrong person to shout something at.
You've obviously been on this journey with Anthony Joshua, and it's an emotional journey for you. It's one that you invested in from the beginning to where he is now. How proud are you from how far he's come, the ups, the downs, and he's on that building block again to trying to get the big fights and become world champion? Yeah,
I think you wake up tomorrow morning and you go, thank God for that, Anthony Joshua won. But he won't be over the moon with his performance. But I think, and people will be probably overcritical of his performance, but there was also a lot of pressure. Like I said, he hasn't won since November 2020, and a defeat tonight would have been the end of the road. And everyone keeps asking him, is a defeat the end of the road? And like he said, yes, it is. So that was what was on the line tonight.
Do your expectations of AJ's performance, like you said, you've watched him all the way from the start of his career to now. How did you find his performance in comparison to obviously the last 2 or 3 fights that he's had?
Different styles. Usyk's a southpaw, very tricky. Franklin's tricky. I don't think that's a good style for AJ, a short fighter that moves well. I thought Franklin's jab was really good, but then I feel like he went into his shell and he was holding a lot, Franklin as well. Josh was holding too, but Franklin more so in the back end of the fight. I would have liked to have seen AJ put combinations together, and I was trying to tell him, although it's not my job, but just as a fan, to walk him back to the ropes and keep him there. When he had him backed up, he looked very dangerous. But he was giving Franklin too much ground, giving him too much confidence. And that's what we said, to not give Franklin confidence. And for me, I would like to see him back him up more and let those combinations go on the ropes.
From a fan's point of view, AJ seemed to actually warm up after round 7. Kind of like the round where we usually get a bit nervous with him. But we saw a stronger engine. And we saw him start to get more aggressive as the rounds went on. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that was one of the pleasing points, was sometimes, and I think that's definitely in his head about his tank, because we know that he's thrown so many punches before and he's a big guy that his engine has wilted. But maybe he could have left a little bit more in the ring without worrying about his engine. But I think after tonight, the confidence will be there that he's got more than enough to go the distance.
The energy, final question, the energy from the crowd. I saw AJ at the presser. You kind of like seemed a little bit pissed off with the UK. He was kind of like saying, I can't wait to get back to Dallas. He went out there, that crowd was electric. People were happy to see him. How do you think that affected his performance?
I think it's just the criticism. I mean, look, you'll see tomorrow. There'll be loads of criticism. You know, he came back, like I said, he hasn't won since November 2020. Solid, not spectacular. But it will be, oh, you know, you can imagine the headlines, and that's probably, he'll read them and go, why do I bother? You know, but that's all right. It comes with the territory. But I think, you know, he'll want to go back to work. I think he won't want to be around any negativity or any criticism. He's just focusing on himself. He'll be frustrated with the performance. I mean, you'll hear from him shortly, but he knows he can do better. He knows he can be more aggressive, but there was a lot of pressure tonight. It's up to AJ and to Derek. AJ's answer would be 100% yes. He was willing to take that fight in December, which was definitely the wrong time to take the fight. Derek James is 100% right. We should give him more time with Derek James. But at the same time, every time he fights, there's a big crowd, there's a big purse, you know, and people are going to want the right opponent. In an ideal world, sometimes in a trainer's ideal world, the opponent wouldn't be enough to satisfy the broadcasters and the gate and stuff like that. But it's got to get the mix right between who and how much, you know. But I don't think the public are necessarily going to want him to have another 2 fights at Jermaine Franklin level. They're going to want to see him step up, if that's Dillian Whyte, if that's Tyson Fury, if that's Wilder. And, you know, those guys will fancy their chances against AJ because they'll think, oh, you know, it's a chance, he's not the fighter that he was, etc., etc. But I think AJ will box better against a higher level of opposition, particularly people that are coming to win. Loads. I mean, they're fantastic. Good for him. You know, not good for him, but good for him as well. But good for him. You know, and whatever you think of the situation, he has had an absolutely horrific time. Horrific, right? So tonight was great, and I think he'll feel really good. I know he had a bit of drama with TalkSport or whatever, but, you know, at the end of the day, there's no point sitting indoors. You've got to go out in front of everybody, and that's what he done tonight, and I think he'll have a spring in his step.
There's always an expectancy when Joshua comes out to fight, and the expectancy was for this, that because he came in at a career heaviest, that he would go in there and potentially blow him out in the first 4 rounds. Are you more tentative now putting him in with the Tyson Fury off the back of him going 12 rather than going in there and getting the knockout?
I think he'd be an underdog against Tyson Fury for sure. And I don't think it was a performance that is going to make people think that he can definitely beat Tyson Fury, but I know he can box much better than that. I know against an opponent that's coming to win, he'll box much better than that. And I know next time he fights, he'll box much better than that. So, like I said, that fight's all about timing. And it's like, how long do you wait? If it's there, then it'll be difficult not to take it.
You would take that over a Dillian?
Not up. So, I mean, look, for me, like everybody else, yeah. But, you know, I think we can't just keep going, trainer one fight into a big fight, you know. So it'll be up to Derek to sit down with AJ. But like I said, you know, in answer to that question, it's difficult to have those fights and drive the same interest. What might be right for the development of his career might not be right for the commercial numbers. So you've got to get the balance right.
I'm sure you've seen lots still from the legends here. We've actually talked about conduct in the past when we go to previous places, Sean the Junior, Sandra, Joe Saunders, and everything else. Do you want to give a response back in the
Yeah, I mean, it was a hatchet job from Don McRae. I've already written to him because it was a snide piece. Because he never asked me for a comment based on what people had said or incidents. He came up to me on a few separate occasions. If you want to talk about the Chavez fight, Chavez was not my fighter. The contract was not signed for Chavez against Danny Jacobs. Nevada Commission turned up to test Chavez, who hadn't signed any agreement for the fight, wasn't under any testing program, and basically said, what are you doing here? And said, I'm not being tested, I haven't even signed the contract. Not my fighter, not my responsibility. From there, Las Vegas had an investigation. Chavez said, whatever, I'm not fighting in Vegas, you can all do one. We made the fight in Phoenix, and he didn't want to work with VADA. So we asked for a reputable body, and I asked for the opinion of Victor Conte, who now seems to be this saviour of sport, biggest drug cheat in the history of sport, and now seems to have a vendetta against me. I've never even met him. So, Leon Margolis, I texted him earlier. He said some nice words. He said, I'm the most arrogant, hated man in the industry. He texted me, he goes, but I do like you. They're all schnides. Do you know what I mean? But that article was a joke because he never even asked me to comment on what was said. And that's why I deleted his tweet. If you go and check what Don McRae did. He's a fantastic writer. So that's that situation. What was the other situation? I mean, you're free to ask me about any comments that Don McRae made in that piece.
You referenced in the piece, was a previous interviews and things like that. I know they all get thrown at you all the time, the things you said in the past with regards to failed tests, that obviously Conor Benn wouldn't return to action until he was clear, or at least till he's had that due process. Now it looks like he's going to, by all accounts from your words and other people, trying to get him out in June. But I don't feel like we've had that conclusion yet.
Well, you've had that conclusion from the body and the programme that found him guilty, or that he had an adverse finding with. He went through that process. I said to Robert Smith tonight, we need to meet ASAP. Okay. I said, well, do you want to try and move forward with this or not? Not really. I don't feel like he'll get any kind of fair crack of the whip, to be honest with you. But nothing changes, in my opinion, of VADA. They are the premium testing agency. But at the same time, he went to the people who control the testing. They have reinstated him in the rankings. Commissions are happy to license Conor Benn to move forward to fight because of the process that he went through with the WBC. Should he go through the I don't know how many times I have to say this. Should he go through the process with the BBFC? Yes. Can we get them to everybody drop their ego and sit down and have a sensible conversation? I hope so. I asked Robert Smith tonight to do that. Hopefully he comes back to me and allows that ball to start rolling.
That's the clean boxing program test from the first test. What about the second test?
The second test that we acknowledge, I said to Robert Smith said to me, we don't acknowledge UK VADA testing, so I don't know what we're going to do. This is probably why they took 5 weeks. They should have had a hearing during that process. When Dillian White failed a test, and UCAD, yes, Rob, we know, they had a hearing within 2 days, yet they had that information for 5 weeks and didn't have a hearing. Now they want to have a hearing. I agree. I think they should have a hearing.
Robert Smith said that he was serving a cease and desist on
not from us.
No.
He had WBC confirmed to the British Boxing Board of Control that under their process, the test results are confidential. That has nothing to do with making a decision. The ruling that the British Boxing Board of Control came up with was that it's not in the best interest of the sport. They could have made that decision on the day. You tell me. They've received 2 failed tests. Should they have stopped the fight when they received that information?
In my opinion?
Yes.
Yes, well, I didn't get served with a cease and desist.
No, Rob, a cease and desist. You've got a decision to make. They made their decision under that ruling. That ruling is so wide, they can make that decision at any time they want. They're scared to make a decision? It's bullshit. Anyone else? For the 8th month, for every day for 8 months?
Do you feel like there's a bit of a witch hunt against you? You've obviously defended yourself on TalkSport. You mentioned there's an article been written about you. From your point of view, do you feel like...
What do you think? What do you think? There was an article today. There wasn't one mention. I'm not even going to say... I mean, you lot know. Frank Warren sits on TalkSport. Not one mention about... You know what I'm saying. So, of course.
Do you feel like... I spoke to Carl Sullivan yesterday at the Watson show. He feels obviously hard done by him. He didn't want to answer any questions to say.
Hard done by?
They had no communication. He says, no one gave me a call about anything. We weren't told about stuff on time. Do you think they were a bit hard done by in terms of communication?
I think Callis Howland spoke to his fighter and wanted the fight to progress. But we said, we have to wait for the board's decision. The board went quiet. They disappeared for a week. They popped back. They disappeared for 5 days. And on Wednesday, they cancelled the fight. And as I've said to you, the one mistake I made was coming out, talking to you lot, and having the fucking raving hump, with Calla also having the raving hump, wanting the fight to proceed, as did Chris Eubank Jr. And then we sat in their office and we said, we cannot continue with this fight, or even try to. So we have to take our medicine, we understand the decision. As I've said before, I'll say it again, the right decision, 100% the right decision from the British Boxing Board of Control. Why did it take 5 weeks? You can hide behind letters, you can hide behind whatever you want. if you want to criticise me for waiting for the board's decision, I think you might want to criticise the board for not making a decision for 5 weeks.
I speak to Robert Smith last week.
Well, okay. Well, he speaks to everybody else. Might not like you.
We'll let it go.
Be the first good bit of judgment he's had. Anybody else? Fucking whatever you want. Come on.
Javonte Davis, Ryan Garcia.
Yeah, Javonte Davis. Fuck
Three
Javonte.
on his own. I mean, you must be delighted with that.
The thing is, it's not a hatchet job, but we don't want to acknowledge Anthony Joshua on April the 1st, April the 8th, Bam Rodriguez going for a 2-division world championship, plus 4 against Magdaleno, plus unified world championship with Akhmadaliev. 2 weeks later in Cardiff, one of the best fights cards we've ever seen, top to bottom, Rakimov against Cordina, great card as well. Then we go to Guadalajara. Oh, by the way, Tank against Ryan Garcia is part of your subscription as well. Then we go to Guadalajara for the homecoming against Britain's John Ryder. Right, then we've got Katie Taylor fighting in Dublin for the first time ever, fighting 2 undisputed champions. And then tonight we announce Wood Lara. And you don't think it's a hatchet job, that that's not a great schedule. Who is putting on a schedule like that? Quiet now, aren't you? Correct, am I right?
No one's put this.
You're right.
Eddie, you've recently added the new world champion to your stable in Sonny Edwards. How soon do you see him in the life of Bam Rodriguez, El Rey, Chalk?
I think what it is, Raheem, is I don't want him to fight at a certain level. I feel like if you stay there for too long, you're not going to get the best out of the fighter. You're going to get the best out of Sonny Edwards against Julio Cesar Martinez and Bam Rodriguez. Julio Cesar Martinez fights May the 6th, so it's probably a little bit late to wait for him, but Bam fights on Saturday. I know Robert Garcia and Bam Rodriguez will fight Sonny Edwards next. We've got that June 10th date, which was supposed to be Felix Cash against Ammo. I think we have to rule that out right now. And I think we have to look for a new headline, which could be Sonny Edwards, could be Fabio Wardley, could be Josh Warrington. But I don't want to keep Sonny at that level for too long. I want to see him in the big fights. And I love his mindset, by the way. I never really used to like Sonny Edwards. I think he's really bright. I think he's got a great boxing IQ. And I think when you talk to him sensibly, I think he's a very bright individual. He's a great talker. And I think he's a tremendous fighter.
I've noticed you have a lot of relationship with some of your fighters, Sonny Edwards, Derek Chisora. What is it about that chemistry that you have with your fighters?
Because I'm honest. I had it with Dillian White tonight in the toilets. Not like that. Yeah, I know, not quite like that, but he said to me, like, what's going on? I said, I'll be honest with you, this is what's happening, blah, 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 and, I'm just on it, and same with Derek. Derek says some crazy stuff, but we've looked after Derek. We've always treated, he moans about never getting paid from other promoters, did fights, took years to get paid. We pay him every Tuesday after the fight. We always deliver what we promise. We've given him about 8 or 9 fights when some say we shouldn't have. And then so anyway, I'm not going to sit here and gas up fighters if I don't feel like they should be. And if a fighter doesn't perform in the way that they should, it's like AJ tonight. I'm not going to sit here and say, unbelievable, solid, not spectacular. And you guys know the game well enough anyway.
Talking to Sonny, obviously brother Charlie's called him out.
Yeah, a bit of a weird one,
Yeah,
isn't
it's a weird one, yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Do you want to make that fight?
I mean, yeah. I wouldn't want to, I wouldn't want to break up their brotherhood, but yeah. No, I think Charlie's moved up. I think Charlie will do his own thing at Bantam, but I think Sonny Edwards has to unify. And I think Frank Warren and George Warren will work with the other champion, the Delakian. There's no reason why we can't get an undisputed champion in that division.
Josh Warrington, what's now going to happen with him now?
Yeah, he's a bit disappointed because I expected Lee Wood to wait for the winner of that fight, but he was just adamant he wants to activate the rematch clause. So that'll be May the 27th. Josh will fight the winner of that fight, but he may choose to fight on June the 10th as well, possibly.
What's that opponent we're looking at for him then? He's obviously got that way.
Good fight. I mean, look, he's coming off a tough fight against Lopez. Need to be a top 15 guy, but we've got to be careful because the last one we picked was Maurizio Lara. How are we getting on, Dan? Sweating, eh?
5 minutes.
Right.
Just on Fabio Wardley,
I thought he was great tonight.
do you think the stoppage was a bit early?
Yes. I thought Michael Coffey is a very experienced fighter. I think he was catching a lot of the shots, but you have to throw back, that, and he took one too many, but he was fine. So we always want the show real knockout, but for me, with his experience and his size, I felt like the stoppage was early. As actually did I feel like what was the other fight I thought the stoppage was early? Yafai. Same. I mean, the referee says to Yafai's opponent, walk towards me. He doesn't speak English. I mean, he was taking a pasting, but at the same time, and he didn't walk towards him, so the ref stopped the fight. But that was I felt like the Wardley fight was a quicker stoppage than ever.
Of course, David Adelaide has said he would prefer the fight to be on BT. If Frank Warren was to make a considerable offer, would you be happy for Wardley to defend his title on BT?
Yes, but again, I'm not being rude, but I don't think David Adelaide's profile is through the roof fighting at York Hall. But Fabio Wardley's just boxed in front of him. Tonight, more people watch Fabio Wardley than watched David Adelaide's last fight, probably about 5 times as many. And he did it in front of 18,000 at the O2, not in front of 800 at York Hall. So, and it was a small show on BT on Friday night. I know the numbers. It's very, not impressive at all. But I think he's a good fighter. And I love the fight. And I love that he turns up at a press conference. He's got more publicity turning up at a DAZN press conference than he's got his entire career.
How high is Wardley ceiling?
Sorry?
How high do you think Wardley's ceiling?
I think it's impossible to tell, isn't it, with that pedigree. But every time I see him, and I thought one of the things that I liked tonight was the way he looked. The way he embraced the crowd, nice and composed, sharp puncher, exciting, very smart individual as well. And I think, we've got Dakers, Clark, Adelaide in any order. They're the 3 fights. If he wins the Lonsdale belt outright, going through that opposition, I think it'll be a really impressive slate.
Eddie, you said obviously about Derek Chisora said about the Dylan White fight, the trilogy. Would you rather see AJ in there with Dylan White now over Derek?
Yes. I think that's a poor question. Am I joking? So.
June 7th was meant to be Ammo versus Cash.
Yeah.
Of course, that fight you said is not going to be happening anytime soon. Who would you work to get Ammo in the ring with next? What's going to be his career path?
I still feel it was that 14 fight for him tonight, I think. So I thought it was a good performance. I think he's still got a lot to learn. But I really like Ammo. You talk about ceilings. Again, he had a limited amateur career, but he was stopping people in the amateurs. Again, when I need him to settle down with a trainer, he does move around camps a little bit. Obviously, he's had his problems as well. But he's, you give him the call 3 or 4 weeks out, he's always ready. And I think he's an exciting fighter.
Eddie, I see you said Devin Haney beat Lomachenko comfortably. Do you really believe that?
Yeah, definitely. I think he'll win every round.
Devin Haney, I believe, is out of contract after Lomachenko.
That's why I said he'll win every round.
Yeah. So obvious question next then. He's always spoke very highly of you, even when he did go to top rank, because he said it's always about the belts, but when he was with you, you did everything you said, paid him well, etc. You'll be looking to link up with Devin, providing you said.
Depends on the money. Look, we get on great. I met up with him in Vegas the other week. He misses us, he'd love to be back with us, but if he's getting more money elsewhere, I'm sure he'd love to be there as well. But Devin Haney's on a lot of money right now, and it's just, is it the right money? Tremendous fighter. I think the Lomachenko fight's a great fight for him, but I also feel like he'll move to 140 quite quickly after this fight, and then there's some great fights for him up there. Everyone seems to be moving to 140, and hopefully we can get Jack Catcher in the mix. We've got Liam Paro sitting there. Steve Sparks going to fight on the card in Guadalajara, so hopefully someone can get a crack.
After tonight's performance, can AJ fill out a stadium again?
Against the right opposition, for sure. I mean, the Dillian White fight is a case of, do you go for a stadium or do you put it in the O2? When you get the ticket prices right at the O2, as we've seen with the UFC recently, sometimes it's more economic to do it there. I think it's a great fight for the O2. Obviously, if he's fighting Wilder, if he's fighting Fury, of course.
Maybe has there ever been talks about doing the fight in Nigeria? AJ talked about it before, maybe.
Yeah, I think he'd love to do it. I think it's just logistically quite difficult. I'd love to do a fight just in Africa in general. I think it would be amazing. When I spoke to Francis Ngannou and we talked about that fight, he liked the idea of doing him against AJ in Africa. I I think is it the anniversary coming up for Rumble in the Jungle? Is that next year or something? I don't know. Pretend you knew, didn't you?
I think so.
Yeah.
Are there any other territories that you want to sort of move into now? You said putting on shows, you keep saying you're the only global promotion. Is there any other territories you haven't been to yet that you want to do? You've been to Australia, you've made a few shows there.
I feel like Germany was, could be a sleeping giant. I mean, it was a big territory. RTL used to do massive numbers around Klitschko and other fights as well. It just comes down to talent. I don't feel that Germany has a deep talent pool at the moment. Italy's been good, but same problem in terms of the talent pool. Spain, Mexico is fantastic. I mean, it's just great to do shows there. But no immediate territories. Poland is an interesting market. A lot comes down to our broadcaster as well, in terms of where DAZN are active, what sports they have in that territory and what they need to add. Andy?
5 minutes. How did your conversation with Babish after you did it in the first?
I haven't really spoke to him. I spoke to his team. We put a great bid in for the purse bid. We got beaten in the purse bid. And then we got offered the UK rights to buy the UK rights for April 22nd, but we had Cordina against Rakimov. So we couldn't, unfortunately, buy that, but I wish him all the best, and I believe he can beat Rosansky. I think it's been a good fight. I messaged him the other day. I said, I thought he looked great in camp. And, yeah. Any song? How are we getting on?